Okay, so I've been meaning to do this for quite a long time, and in one of the communities that I'm in, I've asked a general question, and it was, "What are some of the resources, some of the questions that you have burning as a non-technical founder that you want to answer?" And there was this comment that I found really, really interesting, very insightful, what you have in front of you. And I'm not going to read the entire comment down to you, but I am going to be breaking down. And the broken down points is something that we're going to be working towards answering bit by bit. So there's a couple of things that we need to analyze here. So, in summary, what the comment was asking is, as a non-tech founder, how do I budget and build digital assets? What price to expect to pay for an app, for a website, for an e-commerce site, and then about support issues, because this is something you're going to face either way. So if you're going for WordPress, if you're going for Shopify, there might be vulnerabilities or your website might be hacked. So that is something that you have to consider. If you're going for a more technical build where it's built from scratch, there might be some dependencies that you have to keep updated and other factors you have to consider, especially in development, because what might happen is that there might be some bugs and you want to reach out to the person. Next, we're going to cover a the difference between hiring a company and hiring a freelancer. When would you want to consider each option, and where to find those people, where to find good freelancers, and where to find good companies? And then, which is kind of a repetitive question here, but it is slightly different. So I kept it separately here. How much would it cost, and how much time will it take? And the last part is the most important part is that if the company that you're talking with actually know what they're talking about, which I found to be a really big problem in the current market, especially with AI involved. Okay, with that aside, I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of who I am. I am Vladimir Laskin. I run VR Bruno for 2 years. This is me. I'm a developer. I've built so many different websites. I've built websites that convert. I've built some crazy stuff over the years. And I get a sense of what works, what doesn't, and I can smell like successful companies from miles away. And in the UAE, if you go to the top developers list and most active developers list in GitHub, I am the top 16, formerly top 15, but this guy took my spot. But anyways, I'm very qualified to say that I know what approximately a really good answer is for each of these questions. And forgive me if I'm a little bit shy. Okay, so let's start with the first one: budgeting, building digital assets, right? So to answer this question best, I need to understand where you are. You have to ask yourself, where are you as a business? Okay, there's three places you can be in. You could be starting out. So if you're starting out, you're probably by yourself. Maybe you have a couple of freelancers. You work with a couple of freelancers. You might have people in part time. You might have your friends and family working in the business. And if your question is about building digital assets, I'll actually tell you skip it. Just completely skip it. It is not worth it for you. At this stage of the business, you want to save as much money as possible, and you really want to focus on the biggest resource that you have as a person or as a business, which is your time. And what I recommend here, especially when you're going for websites, whether you're going for apps, whether you're going for e-commerce, there's a couple of things I would recommend for you. So either look for no-code tools, look for AI, or see if you can do it yourself. Invest your time to get value out of it. You're not generating enough value to justify paying a high cost or high price or any price at this point uh, to save you time. You need to use your time as an asset. However, if you have quite a bit more people, so if you have like a slightly bigger business, let's say you have two or three, four people, I'm going to be speaking in dirhams, so around like $1 to 4 dirhams. So if you want to see what price I'm giving, you can divide by four. Specifically, it's 3.67, but let's keep it four to keep it simple. Right. So if you have the budget of between 5,000 dirhams to 10,000 dirhams, well, then you can start really considering building digital assets. But again, there's only specific cases as a medium business or a small business that you'd really have to consider this. And it would be in cases where there is no existing solution. So the first thing you should do is that you should look, does this solution exist in the market? And I'll give an example, right? So I worked with a couple of companies where they wanted to build their own CRM. Why? Why do you want to build your CRM? There's a lot of different tools that exist, and truth be told, they are better because they are backed by teams. You pay a monthly subscription, and some are free, like HubSpot. They have a free plan, so you can just test it out. So if you're in a starting up stage, or if you're up to a medium business, right, you don't have to build those tools. The only reason you would have to build the tools if the tools don't exist. As an example, let's say a lead scraping system from Twitter or from X that passes recaptures with AI or something along those lines. Then, well, in that sense, there's probably no open source tools for that. Then yes, that would actually make sense to um, build it yourself, because there's no paid solution, there's no free solution there. So yeah, it makes sense you could build it. However, for other stuff, you really don't need to check if it exists in the market. Most likely, you don't have to build. There's a lot of great tools out there, especially if you're looking for a CRM. There's Zoho, there's Odoo. You're gonna waste your money because again, the main thing you have to consider. There's three questions that you have to consider. Can it save you money? Can it make you money? Or can it save you time? Which is both. If it can't, well, then it's not worth it. You can just use AI or an existing solution for it. That's basically the mentality that I want you to have. However, if you are a larger business, let's say you're corporate, you have like, let's say a bigger budget, let's say 10K dirhams and above, then in that sense, you do want to automate the stuff, or you want to build tools that will save you time. So I'll give you an example, right? You want probably a mailer, a custom made mailer system, or even use an existing one. Instantly is pretty good, just to save you time. So you can start looking for different things, because again, building stuff for yourself, building additional assets from scratch is very expensive. But if you are in a spot where you can justify, where your time is worth saving 5 minutes, so you 5 minutes is worth more, 5 minutes per day is worth more than it will cost you, then yes, go for it. Because again, in 5 minutes over the period of 1 or 2 years can compound to really big value. So if it's something that saves you 5 or 10 minutes, go for it. Again, that depends on where you are as a business, depends what you're doing and what you're planning to do, and if you can answer these three key aspects, if it addresses it. Okay. Well, with that in mind, what price to expect to pay for an app? This is such a general question that I generally cannot give you a direct answer. An app is such a complex thing. Now, I'm a website applications developer. I'm not an app developer. I'm not familiar with React Native at all. So I can't give you specific. I cannot give you a specific answer for mobile apps, but I can give you some general idea for web app, right? So generally, at least in our organization, a web app is basically the price of web app is basically just in this, right? What kind of features do you want, right? So what kind of things, what kind of features do you want? What kind of results are you aiming for? And how complex would it be, as well as how many users are you expecting, right? There's a certain thing that's not visible to use a non-tech founder, which is specifically the scalability, load balancing, caching, and all of those stuff, right? So to make the application as usable as possible, building the UI, building the UX. Sure, you can use some pre-made components. Yeah, you will save time. Sure, but depending on what you want to go or what you want to do with it, right? For example, is the app for you or is the app for your users? Are you building a SaaS, or are you building or do you want an ERP built for you, right? So that's a big difference, right? If it's something built for you, then you can probably not really recommend, but you can kind of tone down the UI UX, because again, it's an internal tool. You don't really care that it looks nice. You just care that it works and it's understandable enough that it saves you time. But if you're doing for other customers, so if you're doing for your customers, you're building SaaS tools, let's say a cafe app, then you would really want to invest in UI UX, because that's something that converts. It gives people value. It's more enjoyable to use as well. But to really answer the question, I can give you a general range. It can be anywhere between 10,000 dirhams to, I don't know, it can go up to millions. It depends. Again, it depends how complex the app is. A lot of different factors. But a general idea is, let's say, 10K starting. And what would make a web app, in my opinion, and this is how I judge it, is that do you have admin panels? Do you have logins? Do you have registers? Do you have RBDMs? So that's like role-based permissions. Like do you have roles? Like for example, admin roles, user roles, employee roles. Well, if you do, then probably it's an app. But again, there's a lot of things to consider. I'll give you an example as well. We built a learning management system for one of the coaches in Dubai. That was around 15,000 dirhams. And it basically included the lessons view, the admins view, managing payments, Stripe payments, monthly subscriptions, and yeah. And I will get to it. There's a lot more details there as well, but I'm kind of going to glance over it because again, I'm going to be addressing it in specifically in budget and support issues, right? Because slightly more information you have to know. So these two will get summarized into this points, and it'll be summarized into this point. Okay, company website. Now, company website is a little bit easier. So, website depends on what you're going for. What results are you going for, right? Some people say like, oh, just want a portfolio website, right? Or I want this, or I want that. Again, let's bring up an example. Where are you now as a business, right? If you're just starting out, I'm gonna say something very controversial. Most likely, you don't need to hire anyone. I recommend against hiring. If you want to build as much trust as possible, you don't want to invest in the website, especially if you're really money tight, because um, nowadays in the current market, uh, well, you can convert with Instagram, you can convert with social media, you can convert with LinkedIn, you can even convert with YouTube. And what really sells is the trust that you can build. So even if you don't have a website and you have trust, then you can really convert customers. Websites really shine because it's a tool that's used at scale. It's your salesperson. I want you to see your website as a salesperson that does the sales for you. So whenever somebody comes, it's sales at scale because it's managing the objections, it's doing everything as normal salesperson would do, uh, but at a larger scale with a lot more clients. But again, to answer this question, as a starting up business, I don't recommend paying for a website. I recommend doing it yourself. Make something simple if possible, because it's highly unlikely it's going to save you or make you money unless you invest a lot into it. And if you are in that stage, you probably don't have a lot of money. And good websites are expensive. Um, at the medium range to high range, well, then we can actually consider, right? So pricing would really depend on where you are. But at this stage, I would say, at least from our company, the way that we do it, the starting price would be around 3,500 to 4,000 dirhams for simple landing pages, and it goes up to 10,000, 20,000 dirhams, depending on how many features there are, how much effort is put in, how much work and research and copywriting is put in. Because again, uh, there are cheaper prices out there, but cheaper. Like, do you want something cheaper? Because again, there's a lot of cheap stuff available, but it's not necessarily good, and you're kind of gambling around, like finding freelancers who are probably using AI and don't know what they're doing, or companies that are just doing whatever. Right? There's a specific craft into it, so you would want to invest a good amount into a website because that directly reflects on your sales, on your website, on your brand scalability, on your company scalability, and your company's lead, because that's something that's supposed to be working for you, not working against you. And again, like I said, that's usually the starting price that I'll recommend looking at companies. If somebody is going cheaper, then they're missing some steps because, again, there's a lot of things to consider. There's accessibility, there is market research. You have to dive in before you even build a website. That's something not visible to you. You have to dive in to understand the copywriting, the target market, the target avatar, to understand what really converts in this specific niche, what really works, what kind of keywords work. That's for SEO. You have to also have a design that actually sits nicely and converts. So depending on which category your product is in, let's say you're in e-commerce, right? So let's say you're selling to a lower end client. Let's say you're selling children's toys, right? And it's like, let's say, a couple of dollars, like $1 or $2. It's a very cheap market, right? Then the mentality and the way the website is designed and structured is very different. It will be more packed with information, be more packed with reassurance. And then there's a luxury market. If you're selling high-end products, well, then it will be really specific to the colors you choose, the themes you choose, the feel, the overall feel, and the loading speed of the website, right? So there's a lot of different things that you have to consider, but the price range is between 3,500 to up to 100,000. Again, like in with websites, so you really don't have a limit to what you can do, and as a consequence of that, there is not really a ceiling of a price. Uh, when it comes to e-commerce, I'm going to say directly, starting price is 7,000 dirhams. If you are starting up, again, if you're starting up, you could consider doing it yourself. Here, if you have an e-commerce, then you might consider hiring somebody to make something very simple for you. So, in my recommendation, my experience, something really good to use for lower end companies or the companies that are just starting out. If you're just starting out, right? What I recommend is just Astro.js with a mix of Snipcart or Shopify or WooCommerce. Those are just fantastic options. You don't really have to bother with anything else. It solves most of your problems. You don't have to think about it. Don't go fully custom. Never go full. If you are in a low budget range, I beg you to not go with fully custom because you're asking to get burnt. It's bad enough that you can actually destroy your business if the person you're working with actually screws it up, or the people you're working, the company you're working with screws it up. Because when you make it custom, there's a lot of things you will have to adjust, like the security vulnerabilities. You're gonna have to access what happens if there's double payments, webhooks. What happens if somebody refunds? Does it reflect in the state? There's a lot of things to consider. Use a premium solution. There's a lot of great options. Do not try to wow and just uh, expect something done cheap and great. It does not work. It is cheap, fast, and good. You cannot expect something cheap and fast and good. And the other issues that you have to understand is that a lot of the cases where you're using Shopify or WooCommerce, there's also pre-made templates, so you can kind of skip UI UX. UI UX or designs, website designs at lower end budget are usually terrible. It's hard to come across a good designer that doesn't know how much a good design costs. But I digress. So for medium businesses and larger businesses for e-commerce, I would actually recommend a similar thing. Stick to Shopify, stick to WooCommerce. Actually, I would mostly recommend to stick to Shopify. WooCommerce is that if you're going towards a lower end, but Shopify is usually great and fantastic for it. For larger end, let's say you're building something like Noon or Amazon, well, then you can start considering Ruby and Rails. You can start considering like making things from scratch, and that will be a higher end. So the prices here. So remember when I said the prices starting from 7,000? Well, for custom made solutions, you should expect the price between 15,000 and above. So even if you're outsourcing to like offshore, if you work with an offshore team or an offshore dev, a good dev or a good dev team will be charging around this much. And I'm not talking about the design cost, because the design cost will be different as well. And that's something that you have to be careful with, because it's a solid cost, because you can get a great e-commerce site done, but the design will not be there. So there's two different parties working here, because good developers are not necessarily good designers, and good designers are not devs most of the times. Okay, we've addressed those. Now, the most important part is the budget for support issues. And like I said, you are gonna run into issues no matter what you do. If you're working a freelancer, well, most freelancers that I know or have seen people work with, the issue is that they don't have the time to maintain your project. So what usually happens is that they build the product for you and they just disappear, or they build a product for you. If they do respond to you, they are usually busy with other projects, because freelancers, what they do is they work in volume. So they try to take as many projects as they can at, let's say, lowerish price, and you start facing a problem, because when something does happen, you might have to pay for a different freelancer to fix it up. And in certain cases, especially when it's custom made, if there's no documentation, if there's some bad practices, and there's a lot of bad practices when you're working with a single or a couple of developers, right? Or when you sometimes outsource the work, there's a lot of bad practices because they're trying to save time by cutting down, like taking shortcuts here and there. Especially when you pay them a low amount, they try to take shortcuts, they try to use AI generated code. There's no documentation. So the person that's going to be onboarded to work on this product, to support it, let's say something goes wrong, there is a chance that they're going to waste their time. They're going to lose time. You're going to lose time, because that issue will take a really long time to solve, because the app is, or the website is not well documented. But when you're working with companies, it's a little bit easier, especially when you know which companies to look for. I'll address it a bit later. But when you're working with companies, um, what happens is that they usually have a support package, or they have like a maintenance package. So where they're legally obliged to actually help you to address those issues. And usually a great approach for that is just to ask, okay, what happens if this? Just directly ask the company that you're working with, what are the maintenance, like what is the maintenance package? What about the issues? How much time, how many hours per month can you dedicate? Like for example, in Vim Bruno, for us, depending, like we switched the packages recently. We were doing an hour per month in terms of maintenance, but now we're doing like the first week free maintenance, and then there's a package, or you can do it yourself. We basically give the documentation how to do it yourself if you want to, but we do have a package for that, and it addresses a lot of points. So do proofread the package and see how it is. With freelancers, it's less likely that they do have something like that. So here, I'd favor the businesses. The next one is hiring a company versus hiring a freelancer. Um, 9 times out of 10, if you are working on a larger project, let's say a website, not just a specific part of the website, you're not working just design, or like let's say a web app, you're working a specific part of like a web app. I would prefer companies to freelancers, and the reason being is because companies are more organized, whereas a freelancer is kind of more random. They expect you to provide a structure most of the times. It's very hard to find great freelancers that operate like businesses, right? Uh, the main edge that businesses have is that they have good structures. They have a certain liability to make a great website for you. They have an investment, right? Because if they don't, or if they screw up, there's always like Google reviews, there's Trustpilot, there's wherever you're hiring from, there's a way to review them, there's a way to make them legally liable, especially if they're in the same country as you or the same region as you. They are legally liable. With freelancers, it's harder because if you hire freelancer from Fiverr or Upwork, there's no liability there. Like, sure, you can leave them like a bad review, but like it really doesn't matter. Like they're flooded with probably good reviews. Actually, I'm gonna give you an anecdote. Like at least three of our clients had a website done. One of the websites that we worked with, the guy built an e-commerce store. He paid a freelancer from Upwork, sorry, not from Upwork, from Fiverr to build his website, but it was done so bad that well, his complaint was that if I were to build myself, I would have done it better than a freelancer. One and two, when I was working the project with Gabriella, when we basically took on the project, there was a lot of constraints. The amount of bad work done actually set us back because when I was working with styling the website, when I was working with the style specifically, I didn't know the website was built with Shopify. I didn't know why certain changes were not like reflecting. I was like, what was going on? Why is like this part of the header hidden? Like, what is going on? Why is this here? Why is that there? Why is this not going well? Why is this like big red thing there? And I realized what this guy did is he probably asked the AI how to change this. So he went and he basically put important tags. Important, if you don't know, in CSS, it's really bad. You should prefer to use this cascading. Like you basically want to use the IDs or classes, whatever you want, right? So you would rather use specificity rather than important, because important says ignore all the other styles, and that set us back because I spent maybe 1 or 2 hours looking just what was going on, why is it happening, is this from Shopify itself? And I went down to the inspect element and I went down and I saw that there's an important style applied to it, and I didn't even know where to look. And I found out that he wanted the admin dashboard or the admin block builder from the Shopify builder itself, not VS Code, which is how you usually do. And he has made all the changes to the styles or all the styling. He's done it through that. And that's the changes that I saw. And you, as a non-technical person, you are not going to be trained. You don't have a trained eye for that. You might actually miss those things out. So again, freelancers have a big risk. So it's a big risk. It's very hard to find good freelancers, but they are good freelancers. So I'm going to tell you this. Good freelancers, again, they know their price. They're not going to be charging you $100 for a website. If you are going to get those deals, you're guaranteed to get burned. You could probably get even better work with AI. And I'm as a developer, I'm telling you this. AI would probably does a better job than those cheap freelancers. But again, freelancers do have their own advantages. Freelancers are usually cheaper than companies, and freelancers usually are much easier to interact with. There's no hierarchy. Some freelancers work Saturdays and Sundays, so if you need them available like random times, like let's say 9 a.m., you need them available 4 a.m. As bad as it sounds, they're usually available for that. Whereas in companies, they have specific working hours, but that's a good thing because they do have a structure again, and that structure really is what makes the difference. And the structure guarantees success. They have a specific way of working with things. I'll give you an example. So me and Bruno, right, the company that we're running, we have at least 7 steps from the beginning to the end, uh, just just to get a perfect website up. So we have a stage for reviews, stage for what they call research, stage for like just setting um, the right goals, the right targets, so we're all aligned. We have a process for doing things. We have a like a way to version control. We have ways to leave the documentation, so if somebody else picks it up, they'll be able to know where to work. We have a work queue system, so if there's some new things come up, so let's say there's new changes come up, that we do it in such a way that it's not sporadic. It's like, wow, okay, there's so many things and just trying to do 1,000 things once. Not a specific structure, and that structure really guarantees success and quick delivery. uh, as usually, how much would it cost and how much time it will take, right? So I believe I answered the how much would it cost pretty well, but how much time would it take is a really big question, right? Again, it falls back. What are you planning to do? Like that is my question. What are you planning to do? How many features do you have? So a good timeline for a basic website with research done, with UI UX, with accessibility, with what do you call it, with the copywriting, with the SEO work done. Usually, a good amount is like 2 or 3 days. Sure, I give it to you. You can use a template. Yes, you can use a template to save time. You can use pre-made components to save time. Sure, you can copy some other web page or like get inspiration for some other web page, which I highly do not recommend. But sure, let's say you do all of that. Even then, all of these considerations take time because again, you have to sit down, you have to understand who are your target market, why do they want to buy from you, why should they buy from you, why is it relevant to them, what kind of design and theme do we want to communicate, what kind of market are we working, how do we match the energy of that target market. How do we address the pain? The copywriting framework, like for example, Pastor, that's the one I highly recommend, right? So, what are the pains? How do we agitate the pain of the customer? What's the story that you know as a brand? Like, what story can you tell as a brand? What kind of testimonials do you have? Sometimes you even have to make a pattern interrupt, right? So, pattern interrupt in design, and this is a high level thing, is when you have something when you have a website and you have something that stops people in their tracks and it makes them think like, okay, if you want to make people focus on the section, right? The most important section would have some kind of pattern interrupt. So it can be like a geometrical shape, it can be videos, it can be something crazy, but you that would get attention. So we have to come up with a pattern interrupt. And all of these things take time. So like I said, a landing page, let's say with 2 or 3 pages, would take around 3 days to figure everything out, to build it from scratch. So I'm thinking about Astro, but more complex applications, right? So let's say web apps. Web apps need a lot of research because now you're adding an additional factor, security concerns, security controls, the vulnerabilities. You have to see if everything is enabled, like CSP, content security policy is enabled. You can see that people cannot, what they call, there's no role bleed, so nobody can somehow get away around of accessing stuff they shouldn't be accessing, and a lot more considerations I'm just generally not mentioning. There's a list of things that you have to mention. There's a list of things that you have to, what do you call, look out for. And in that case, I would say the quickest web app that you can make is probably 10 or 11 days. And that's the simplest web app with all of the considerations, with the DevOps, publishing, and even managing the servers. And again, when you consider scalability, when you consider caching and everything, well, that actually adds more time to it. But the general rule of thumb is that the quickest web app that you can do that's good. I'm not talking about Next.js because Next.js is terrible, and I'm biased in that, and I stand my ground. But if you're talking about genuine web app uh, that covers all the features, and let's say does a primarily like one thing good, I'll say it's 10 working days because again, there's still a lot of things you have to consider, especially accessibility, because accessibility in web apps kind of creeps. So accessibility kind of like slips out of the scope sometimes for bigger projects because they usually have a shorter time. The bigger the timeline is, the better usually. But yeah, that's a general rule of thumb. As for e-commerce, sorry, I skip e-commerce. As for e-commerce, it depends what you're building on, but let's say you're building a Shopify and WooCommerce is relatively pretty quick. So the design is the thing that, so e-commerce stores built in Shopify and WooCommerce or WordPress, whatever, like the 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 builder framework is, are mostly design oriented, right? So it's mostly design time and mostly the copywriting part and the sales part, less of the backend right part because you don't touch backend usually in those stuff. Then you can expect a time like between 5 to 7 days. That's usually normal. For bigger e-commerce stores with lots of items, it will obviously take longer. But majority of the e-commerce site, the focus will be on the front end. Okay. Another thing that I want to address is that if the company you hire knows what they're talking about, well, if you're a non-technical person, uh, it is going to be hard to tell because of existence of AI, especially if you're doing like text chats, WhatsApp chats, Telegram chats. They can just Google the questions. Um, they can just lie about it, go to GPT and ask questions. So there's two things that I would like to share with you or how to find out. The first thing that I would recommend is asking the GitHub account. So whether it's a freelancer, whether it's a company, just a GitHub account of the developers. Go to their GitHub account, browse. Do they have the repositories? How active are they? Do they work a lot? What kind of technologies are they using? Like for example, uh, if if you're slightly technical or you have a general idea, you can make out, okay, this person is using jQuery in 2025. It's not wrong to use jQuery, but okay, they're kind of using outdated technology, but it's not a big deal. You can see their activity. Oh, are they active on LinkedIn or they just have a few comments? Not necessarily a bad thing, but it gives you it's just a general North Star. The questions that you want to be asking companies and freelancers would be results oriented. What like you have to see what kind of results have they been bringing to clients, right? And do remember that it is easy to say that I built this website or built that website without any proof. So they have to provide you some kind of proof. Let's say a proof of repository. They can take a screenshot of the repository here. Like, hey, you know what? I worked in Glide Studios. Boom. Here's a screenshot of Glide Studios. Or let's say I worked for X website. Here is a screenshot. Or here's the proof that I worked in it, or we as a company work for. And here are the results that we got. Remember, analytics themselves can be easily faked. Try to get them in the video call, get them to show you the analytics, explain why and how they got these results, right? So there are key tells that the company you're hiring doesn't know what they're talking about. So like it's a red flag. One of the key tells is that when they onboard you or when they're about to onboard you, they don't ask brand specific questions. They don't ask questions about your business. They don't ask questions about your target market. And a really red flag question that I heard from clients that they've been asked, and it's really funny to me, is that what kind of website do you want to copy? I was like, what? If they're copying websites, they really don't know what they're doing, right? Again, that's like a cheap work area. Uh, a green flag would be like they price accordingly. So, like I said, I mentioned some of the prices. In your locality, might be a little bit different, a little bit more expensive, a little bit cheaper. I don't know where you are, but in where we are, this is the prices that we're using. Uh, a a a good a good indicator is that they're charging for it. People who know the value that they can bring charge like it. A developer a developer or a freelancer or a company that says they can bring you millions in sales is not going to be charging you like 2,000 dirhams for it. They'll be charging more money because they can bring you more money, obviously. They'll be charging you, let's say, 7,000, 10,000, 20,000 dirhams because they know they can bring that value in. And the thing is, you have to think apart from the technical details because the main thing or the main reason you would want a website or web app is again these three reasons. You want to save money, make money, or save time. So both of them. And again, the value that you get out should be more than you're paying. And going back to the previous point, is that you have to dive in, see if they can address these questions. How are you going to save me money? Or how are you going to make me money with this? What's the plan? Uh, what have you built something similar to what I need built? What kind of results did you see? What did you do for success? What did you do in failures, right? So really key thing is that you have to analyze carefully what they say and or give you what they analyze their answer for these parts and use your gut feeling. Or do they know like a company that's lying would give subtle emotional tells and you would see it in their face and their expressions If you're not talking to the person, if you're not talking to a technical person, if you're not dealing with a technical person, let's say you're dealing with a company, you're not talking with a technical person, you could ask them to add like one of the developers to the call or one of the project managers to the call and discuss these aspects with them. Because again, that will be if you're talking with a non-technical person that is promising you extra results with max speed and everything, realistically, you can get a good idea of what they've done. You can answer a lot of questions, but then the implementation part and how it's done, and if the team is capable of, uh, it's not there. How are you gonna find out if they know what they're talking about? If the person you're talking to doesn't. But apart from these points, I think I've addressed every single thing that had to be addressed. Like I said, I'm Vlad from V and Bruno. I've run this company for almost 2 years. I've seen a lot of successes. I've seen a lot of failures. The biggest pitfall you can make as a business is investing in the wrong things. Uh, it seems nice that okay, I'm gonna throw let's say 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 dirhams into a single like into a thing because it looks pretty or because I want a portfolio side or I want to look better than my competitors, right? But if you want to scale your business, if you want to increase sales, right, you have to think in this way. You have to think, does this save me money, make me money, or save time? Because again, we're talking about the business, and the main driver, the main heart of the business is the revenue. And if you can't address the revenue question, well, then, well, it's not a successful business then. But either way, this is the end of the video. If you do have questions, again, I'm available. I'd love to chat. I love to argue, especially on Reddit. Uh, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm happy to help you out in your project as well.